Today I have yet another beautiful example of how women wallow in double standards, how they seek to blame men for everything and, of course, absolve themselves and all women of any accountability, any responsibility for their words, deeds, and actions. And even more so, how they don't actually believe in equality or that the rules should apply to them in any way. All right, let's go through her points one by one, shall we, and show just how hypocritical they are. First off, she says taking off the condom without consent is grape. Okay, fair enough. I completely agree. Yet, a woman taking a condom from the garbage and then using its contents to impregnate herself without the man's permission, without his, wait for it, consent, isn't considered grape. In fact, not only isn't it grape, it's perfectly legal for her to do so. Women's groups have campaigned hard to make it that way. So yeah, it's the law, well-established case law as a matter of fact, that makes it perfectly legal for a woman to force paternity on a man. And oh, by the way, get richly rewarded financially for doing so. Again, without having to seek his consent. Now I know, you're going to argue, but that's completely different. But I ask, is it? Is it really? Because grape isn't about the actual act, it's about asserting power and control. And forcing a man to be a father and then subsequently forcing him to be your indentured servant for years without his permission or consent, I'd argue is every bit asserting power and control over someone that grape is. Yeah, they are two different things, but in the end, the result is pretty much the same. And when you consider the fact that the state will support you in your little endeavor, support you in keeping him within your power and control for decades, well, an argument could be made that it may in fact be worse. Funny how you left all of that out in your little video, which y'all do. You always do. Then she says, and yes, quite correctly I might add, that a minor cannot consent to someone over the age of 18. Again, I couldn't agree more. Except she left out the part how in women's, societies, and often the law's view, that only goes one way. See, when a man does it, it is a criminal act. It for damn sure should be. Yet, when a woman does it, like we see almost every single day in the news with all the reports of teachers, that would be female teachers, committing SA against their students, especially young boys, well, let's just say, ladies, your silence on the matter is deafening. Not only don't you hold those female teachers accountable, most of you go to great lengths to excuse the behavior, blaming her hormones or saying she's just misunderstood, or even claiming that she's the actual victim because the young boy, even ones as young as 8, must have wanted it, must have enjoyed it. But you don't even stop there, ladies. Oh, no. Every day, all y'all, especially the older ones, run around claiming that men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who just happen to date younger women, those in their 20s, are P3DOs. Your argument being that those women aren't capable of understanding or giving consent, or are being tricked by the older men. Apparently, all y'all are strong and independent, but not strong enough and independent enough to be able to give consent at, say, 24, 25, or 26. Yet again, you'll argue that an 8-year-old boy is more than capable enough to give consent to a 35-year-old woman. Or, I might add, to give consent to having certain body parts chopped off. But I digress. The hypocrisy is astounding and, frankly, disgusting. Yet, it is the belief that many women have and espouse. Now, let's talk about her statement that forcing yes is grape. Once again, if you notice the pattern, I couldn't agree more. It should be considered grape. But, again, let's call it like it is for women. See, they love to apply that standard to men, but hold women to the very same standard? Well, you see, the mindset is if a man forces a woman, yes, it's grape. But when a woman does it to a man, well, their argument is it's not even possible. Women can't possibly force a man into doing something he doesn't want to do. And again, women and women's groups have gone to great lengths to even have the laws written to support that, which is why the laws are written in most jurisdictions that a woman can't even be charged with rape, let alone convicted. It's why, ladies, all your claims that 98% of all rapists are men are complete bullshit. Because if women can't be charged with the crime in most jurisdictions, then of course the statistics are going to be skewed one way. A fact in reality you all conveniently leave out. Again, it shows the double standards that women wallow in when they make this argument while staying silent about the injustice of women being allowed to force a yes on men. Even when men are drunk, passed out, or even in at least 2 cases I'm aware of, in a coma. Yeah, you heard that right. In a coma. Because even when men were in comas and couldn't possibly give consent, the nurses who, let's say, took advantage of the situation weren't charged with rape. And again, let's be clear. Let me reiterate this. It's women and women's groups who to this day fight so hard to ensure that the legal definition of rape is written so that no woman can ever be charged for forcing a yes. Speaks volumes about women, doesn't it? And lastly, we have the you don't owe anyone sex even if you're dating or married argument. And first off, again, I have no real beef with that if it's occasional. But if that's the case for days, weeks, months, years, even decades, and you're still clinging to the you don't owe it and are never required to give it, then you are also saying that any expectation of loyalty and monogamy should be off the table as well. Because while I completely agree no one should be forced to have sex even within marriage, no one should be forced to go without it either. And I hate to break it to you, ladies, but you're doing that, as so many of you do, denying intimacy to men, is a form of asserting your power and control over him. And guess what? That's a form of abuse, a form of domestic violence, a form of abuse as defined by the Duluth model. You know, the one that governs all the women's domestic violence shelters policies. The one, however, that, like most women do, defines it as only going one way. See, they define it as denial of sex within a marriage by a man is a form of abuse and control, but not when it's the woman doing it. Again, didn't see that one in your little video. Yet, it is in fact the reality that's out there. And once again, let me state this. I agree. No one should ever be forced to have sex against their will. But the fact you don't agree that no one should ever be forced to go without it against their will speaks volumes, doesn't it? Here's a thought, ladies. How about y'all start campaigning to get the laws changed and say that men who are denied sex by their partner should be able to get it elsewhere and it not be considered adultery? You willing to do that? Better yet, how about you in the Coven campaign that if a woman, or a man for that matter, makes it clear they're no longer going to engage in intimacy within a marriage or relationship, then the other partner should be free to walk away, to file for divorce, and have to give nothing up. In fact, they're the ones that get the kids, the house, and all the other stuff. And the other person, the one who said no mas to any intimacy, just leaves and goes on with their life. Absurd, you say? Not fair, you say? Well, how's that any less fair than the opposite, which is the paradigm now? The one that says if men are denied intimacy for years, he's the one who has to leave, give up his house, access to his kids, and a good chunk of his income for years to come. Funny how you all are for things when they benefit you and women in general. But the minute they don't, you change your skins like chameleons. The bottom line is this. The issue isn't necessarily with the things she listed. As I said, I agree with all of them. Quite vehemently, in fact, in a couple of cases. The issue, though, is how she and virtually all women want to apply those standards to men and only men, while not applying any of them to women. This is nothing short of complete hypocrisy and double standards, and misandry. Not to mention it's proof that women don't care in the least about equality. Only themselves.